back. Thank you for having me back again. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces. Today we are talking, among other things, about distraction, about the choices that we make, which is so easy to do. Even while we were doing the confession, I found myself thinking, ooh, maybe that was a little long. Maybe I should trim that down a little bit, maybe next time. And I realized the irony of that is I'm allowing myself to be distracted while I'm confessing that I'm distracted. So it probably feels like, oh boy, I've done it. I've done this myself. I set myself up for that one. So it's easy, isn't it? But there's two things that actually I want to talk to us about in this passage. One of them is going to be that will be in our second bit, which is what do we do with this passage today, in this day and age. But the first thing I want to talk about is what's happening with in this story, specifically to its time and place, especially around the question of gender, because this actually has a lot to say about that within that message. So let's start there. The first thing to know is that Jesus was probably not alone. As we was talking about, they were coming to the house, and there was this group that was staying there. But our narrative now has zoomed into just these three players, because this is where the dynamics are that we're going to pay attention to. And in the social constructs of the day, we have the two women, Martha and Mary, and one of them is doing what she's supposed to be doing, and that's Martha. Martha's the one doing what's expected of her the day. She's doing the chores. There's food to be prepared. If there's guests here, there's rooms to be made. There's service to be done, and that's her role, as they assume. As Martha assumes as well. But there's Mary instead doing what is against the gender expectations of the day. And she's just like, yes, Jesus, what you got to say? I am fascinated by what you're saying. And she's there learning. And it's using some coded language here as well when it's talking about her learning. Because it's talking about her being at the feet of Jesus. That's the definition of a disciple, is the person who sits at the feet of the teacher. That's why you see in the pictures, you'll see, sometimes it's Jesus, even in Plato, because it's a cultural thing, you'll see him seated, and then you'll see the people who are learning from him out and like this, and the ones at the feet, those are the disciples. That's the place of honor, and then it goes back from there. She has chosen and is sitting at a place of honor and of privilege, a place of discipleship, where culturally she does not belong, doing what she culturally should not be doing. She has stepped way outside of the norms of her time. Well, Martha has not. And I point this out only because even today, there's a lot of pressures around this idea that somehow within Christianity, there's this hard-to-find job that is a man's and a hard-to-find job that is woman's, and this is what is expected of us, and her job is in the kitchen. And we still have that today. But I gotta say, that if that was Jesus' perspective, this is exactly when he would say that. In fact, he's being fed the lines. He even has Martha come out and say, Jesus, this is what you're to say. You're supposed to say to Mary, go back to the kitchen where you belong. That's what you're supposed to say. And Jesus instead comes out actually sounding pretty almost angry in his defense of her. As like, absolutely not. She has made her choice to be here, to sit with me. And I will defend that choice. That is the right choice for her to have made. It's a real big, strong flipping of those expectations. And I think it is worth pointing out, especially considering Jesus is always a big fan of service. Service is usually what Jesus says is the hallmark of being a good Christian, and Martha's doing service. So for him to not take the moment to point out the importance of service, but to say something else instead, it means it was really important to him. That there's something even more important he needed to take a moment to say. And that was to defend the choice that Mary made to listen to Christ and to sit at his feet. And he defended that be above and beyond anything else. Now, what's interesting also, before we move on, is that he didn't go tell early on, like he could have right at the start and said, hey, Martha, stop doing what you're doing and come sit here. Or he could have said, Mary, you don't belong here, go over there. He did neither of those things. He let each person make the choice about what was fulfilling and important to them. And it was only when one person was telling the other person, hey, you're doing it wrong, that he stepped in. Because there's nothing, I don't think, inherently wrong with the choice that Martha made. Service is important. It was only wrong that she then stepped in and said, you are making the wrong choice. You're not abiding by the gender expectations of our time. You better start behaving. That Jesus said, absolutely, I will not say that. Absolutely not. Draw that line. All right. So we've covered that. Let's talk about what it says today, because I think this is actually also a really rich passage for the conversation of the day that's happening within the broader church. And I will start by saying, actually, I'm really excited to hear about the neighborhoods. I work with the general council, and now the coordinating council at the Presbyterian level with a bunch of different churches, and I'm hearing these groups are coming together, and I've been hearing really exciting things that have been happening out of those conversations. So I would encourage engaging with that. It's looking pretty exciting, but it is what you make of it. If you decide not to make anything of it, then fine. But if you decide to invest into it, I think you'll find that it's pretty exciting. So anyway, so the wider church, culturally, within I'm not looking here now. I'm looking very broadly across the United States. There's kind of this within congregations, kind of this wailing out of why do we have so many Marthas and not enough Marys? Everyone is distracted by the task to do because we are such busy people these days, which is true. And nobody's making the decision, less people are making the decision to come to church. And what do we do about that? And we're concerned about that. And I'm going to be short on answers, but high on solidarity. I do. It's a challenge that a lot of people are facing. But I also come with you with a way of looking at it. And to talk about that, I'm going to talk about a little bit about my time working with students, because I did that for a number of years. And when I was working with students, we spent a lot of times, as you can imagine, talking about relationships, because that is the time in life when you're figuring that stuff out. And so-and-so, I think I'm dating so-and-so, and so-and-so, I'm no longer dating so-and-so, but I'm now back to dating so-and-so. And no judgment. It's a time for figuring it out. I get it. So we spent a lot of time talking about relationships and models and what works and what you want out of a relationship and a way of thinking about relationship. Some of them have grown up with a view that the way you manage a relationship with someone that you care about is when you start dating that person, you think, oh, this person might be a keeper, I want this person, is that you grab onto them and you hold on to them with all of your might, and you do not let them go. Don't let them see anybody else in the room. Don't let them do anything else. You put a ring on it as quick as possible. You lock that down. And that is one model of relationship. There's a couple problems with that model of relationship, though, and from the practical to the ethical. Like, do you actually want to be in a relationship with someone who's there only because you're holding on to them so tight and kind of trapping them there? Is that the relationship that you actually want to have with that person? Question. To the practical, the reality is that maybe at some point that could have technically kept the relationship going, even if it was trouble. In today's day and age, probably for the better, it won't. If someone wants to leave, they'll leave. It's not that hard, for example, to get a divorce. It can happen. I say that because the idea then that the answer to that is just to hold on tighter and harder and make sure that they never do leave creates a lot of trouble within that relationship. So students and I would be talking about other ways of looking at it, where you still cherish that person and enjoy that they cherish you, but it's not a holding like this, or sometimes seen like this, where the other person can't get their hand away, and that's why they're there, but a holding more like this, the open hand, or like this. You're still holding, you're still cherishing, you're still there. If that person wants to go, they can go. But if they want to stay, that hand is there for them to hold. And while that is terrifying and scary, because what if they leave? What if they do? That's hard. That hurts. I know. It does open up the other question is, well, what if they stay? Because if they stay when you're like this, is it because they actually love you and want to be there, or is it because they have to be? But if they stay when you hold them like this, there's no question about why. They're there because they love you. They're there because they want to be. They could go, and they don't. And they're making a decision every day to stay with you. Each day, I'm going to stay with you, is another decision. And the strength of that continues to grow. This isn't a weaker relationship that forms. If anything, it's a more foundational relationship because you understand why you're there. Because you love each other. And that's why you're there. Now, of course, the question always comes up, though, but what if we hit difficult times and life is going to have difficult times? Won't they just then bounce out? Won't they just leave as soon as things get hard? And I have to say to them, like, I hate to be the one to break it to you, but if they're the sort that's going to leave when times get hard, it doesn't matter how you hold on to them, they're going to leave when times get hard. But the reality is that if they're still there when times are hard, when you hold them like this, it means you really do have something. And you're not doing this because you don't love them. It's because you do love them. Okay, so what does that have to do with that? It has to do with Jesus' defending of the choices that are made. When Jesus says she has chosen her path, she is making a choice. And that's what's important. In the same way he didn't go after Martha when she made her choice, he defended the choice that Mary made, allowing her to make that choice, to come to Jesus the way that she wanted to. If she wanted to leave, he would have. But she chose to stay, and that's what he defended. She made the choice. And we're going to let that choice be paramount in that. So what does that have to do with churches then? Let's kind of apply that to the broader sense. Well, one, have you ever been into a church that holds you like this? Or maybe sometimes it's like this? It's not great, is it? And the idea is, well, what the idea is, you got to put blinders on everyone in a congregation, make sure they don't know that there's other churches. Like, does that actually work? Do you guys not know there's other churches in town? There are. There's one like a little bit over there. There's another one over there. There's another. There's other churches. That doesn't work. In fact, it just makes people feel trapped. That's not a great way to do a church either. But it's this model. It's more of this. Because we know that there's some Sundays, especially over the summer, when people are off visiting family and doing things that are also important. That's less of like a whimsical distraction and important things. People are making other important decisions. But we have this understanding that when we come together, when we make that choice, to borrow the words of Jesus, we've made the right choice. We've made the better choice every time we come back. We've made the good choice. It's an important distinction I'm trying to make, but I think it's important. Every Sunday you choose to come here and to worship with each other is the right choice. And that doesn't mean that the Sundays when you're not here, you made the wrong choice. Do you hear that important difference? I'm not saying it was a bad choice to spend time with your family at the lake or something because it was a beautiful day. I'm not saying that was the wrong thing to do. All I'm saying is that the right choice is made every time you do come here and worship together. That is the right choice. You hear that difference? It's subtle, but it's important. And we recognize then that that's what brings us together, is the desire to be here and worship together and support each other because the relationships that we formed, both like this with each other and with God, are important to us. And that's why we come. Later on this week, we'll be putting that into practice with the funeral. That's one of those hard times in life. It's rough to lose someone you care about. And this congregation really loved this woman. I enjoyed sitting down and having coffee with her myself. It's hard. But that's what we do here, isn't it? We love each other when things are hard and support each other when things are hard because we love each other. And that's the magic of this space. There's another secret I can share with you really quick too. It's that I don't actually have to be here either. I also get choice. And I have chosen this Sunday and many other Sundays to come and worship with you all. Why? It's pretty great. I like it. I enjoy it too. I enjoy the relationships. I enjoy the support. I know when I was going through a hard time, this congregation reached out to me to offer sympathy and support. Wow. You didn't have to do that. But you did, because that's who you are. So let's hold with wonder and joy and celebration, not fear, onto each other, but with joy and celebration of the magical thing that you've got going on here, all right?